All right, hello. This is John Krysinsky here, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, sounding off on soccer. I have a very special guest today, a friend of the program, if you will, a regular who's come back. Actually, I was looking at this and I didn't realize this, but I haven't talked to you, at least in podcast format, since before the Hounds played Tampa Bay Rowdies 2023, and to essentially decide the Players Shield. So it's been a lot has happened since then. But Devon Kerr, welcome back to the podcast.
Good to be back, buddy. Thanks for the sabbatical, I guess we're gonna call that. Um, Certainly always enjoy my time with you, Hound Tan, of course, and I'm also excited selfishly, and I know that your listeners will understand this, that we get to talk about not just USL soccer. College season is upcoming. Pitt and Jay
Yep.
Vidovich are going to get back to it. I'm a little upset. I just got my first 6 college games from ESPN, and there's no Pitt on there, so I got to talk to the powers that be. But most importantly, thank you for having me back once again, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you too. And yes, that is on my agenda. So we'll definitely get to that. But Devin, I've been itching to talk to you about this, and then I heard obviously you were on the call for the Miami FC Hounds match, which ended in a kind of a wild finish draw. Just first of all, just want to get your general thoughts about this club, and then I'll get into some particulars and some questions that I have for you. Just your overall thoughts about this club right now, and what you've seen from them this season.
I would say there is a very big picture, and then there is a team specific this year. I think if you stay with the club, which I think it's important we reference it, that big picture, the constant upgrades, as small as they can be at times to the stadium, are quality. The training facility, massive, and has quickly worked itself from a 6 or 7 year window in 2018, the arrival of Bob Lilly, where it was an afterthought that the Hounds were going to be anything but a doormat for people to step over in the league, to now one of the top 5-10 talked about teams. That's very important. Always on the radar, always in conversation, always growing the sport. As that pertains to the team this year, it's been a very interesting journey for Bob and the guys this year. I think that they felt with the players that they had early on, this could be a ball dominant team that was willing to make opponents feel uncomfortable with possession. It didn't work out that way. We can get into why and how they've changed and things of that nature, but they pivoted after 6 games into the season. And ever since then, statistically, it has certainly benefited them. The results have followed within the table. Don't feel that this is anywhere near a finished product, but it certainly is nice to not be a finished product, struggle for goals, and be on a 6-game unbeaten streak at this time of the season. So,
Yeah, you know what? As you were saying that, it made me think about personnel. It made me think about, well, Bob always likes to have versatile players and versatile roster and guys that can do different things. And they set out, as you said, they set out the season with an intent to be better on the ball. You can be better on the ball and not have to be a ball dominant team, I think. And I think
for
Robbie,
sure.
I had an interview with him yesterday, and he was really, really hitting that point home. But isn't it interesting? I think one of the things that people, at least in this, there's a faction of fans, I think, in this area that are maybe growing a little impatient, that think, some things about Bob, maybe his ways and whatnot. But in terms of identifying players that, that can go along with his changes throughout the course of games, throughout the course of seasons, and his tactical, all of that, and just being flexible and being versatile. Just what are your thoughts? I think that's something that may be a little bit underrated in this conversation.
For the fans that are impatient about the lack of results, I want to table that for a second.
Yes, scoring especially, but yeah.
Scoring's a different conversation than results.
Yes.
When it comes to player identification, the ability for a manager to get 500% out of a player. I know guys that want to get 75%. There is no one better in the history of the USL Championship than Bob Lilly. I understand that when you're in a fan base that carries expectation and emotion, selfishly for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds fan base, that doesn't come from a large amount of success in the championship. It's a tenured club, absolutely. But until Bob arrived, I
Right.
don't mean this rude,
Right.
they didn't do anything.
No,
Didn't do anything. I said it was a doormat before, and that was probably being kind. Like,
mhm.
I played for Gene Klein. I know what it was like to be there. I remember being at LaSalle going through preseason camps. Like, there was nothing there, man. Like, simple. So Bob's ability to go and find players. We always joke when we get into the nitty gritty of Bob Lilly, like Bob's going to take a Golden Boot winner and turn him into a Golden Glove winner, right? Like that's what he does, man. I mean,
Right.
it's insane. And to see, we just had Joey Farrell in the Hartford, Rhode Island game, and we were talking about that. Like Bob's not for everybody. Number one,
Right.
he's for me because I think he has a brilliant soccer brain, the way that he thinks about the match, but more importantly, how the players that he gets can impact the match. Bob is very much of the belief of getting the best out of what's in front of him. He's not a rigid manager that goes, we're going to play my way and we're going to do this and this is how we're going to win. He's rigid, he's demanding, but he does say, okay, we can't do that. Case in point this year, we cannot play the way that I thought we could. We have to change to be better. So in terms of player identification, there is no one better in the history of this league. And if fans are frustrated with that, go find another team, man. Honestly, like yeah, I see some of the chatter online. I think the fans are crazy to think that Bob isn't getting the best out of people, and that goals are a different conversation. I'm with you on that, but
Hmm.
this team is once again in a playoff conversation. Once again, I wouldn't say that they're the best defensive team in the league, but they're certainly top 2 or 3 for my money. And here we are, Bob Lilly trying to make a run at a title. Go figure, right?
Yeah. And, again, a lot of talk. You mentioned the goals. It's a lot to absorb from what you just said, but you mentioned the goals. I guess I'll just follow up on that. This obviously the early struggle this season to find attacking third. The forward. I've written about that a few times already. Been obviously closely charting that here, but the forward production not pretty non-existent for much of the first part. But I think we're starting to see some things, and then Bertrand Jacquesson. Obviously, when I watch him play, I see somebody who has sometimes just unique talents that we haven't seen too many players on the Riverhounds exhibit in terms of what he can do. But just your thoughts about the forwards and how they've, where they are right now, but how they've struggled early, but maybe starting to get it. Just your thoughts there on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the forwards, to be fair. I think it's the combinations of players on the front line. If we're pertaining to the strikers overall, sure, the strikers have struggled, right? Like Augie Williams. Augie Williams is an introvert who people probably see the way that he plays and the attack minded style that he brings, the aggression, that he's going to be this outlandish player who demands the most from everyone. And sure, he holds people accountable, but he's quiet in nature. He doesn't speak up a lot. He kind of just leads by example. And so when you're in a group that has players like a Robbie Mertz, a Danny Griffin, who are boisterous, and you come into that, that can be a little bit overwhelming, right? Augie's also coming from a situation in Indy where I think they did well with him, not great. They also went through a bunch of personnel changes. Tactically, Sean McCauley made some moves last year that at times had them great. I mean, they made an Open Cup semifinal, if I'm not mistaken, right? And they lost Kansas City. So they did really well there, but he was in and out. He dealt with some injuries. I think it was difficult for them to really find rhythm within that group. To me, that's the same conversation for Pittsburgh for Augie. He doesn't understand when Bob Lilly wants to play higher with Danny Griffin, what Danny's movements are. Robbie Mertz is the easy one. Robbie can figure anybody out, in my opinion. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the league and has been for quite some time. But you're trying to release Danny Griffin higher. He seems kind of like a giraffe with new legs, right? A little bit fumbling around at times inside the top of the 18. For me, 6'8" pivot, that's where Danny's at his best, impactful in the midfield. If you then try and box the midfield, well, now that puts more responsibility on Augie. And Augie as a single striker is one thing. Augie as a single striker where he's got no help from the width of the field because defensively they have trouble committing forward. You are literally talking about a 1v3 conversation, 1v4, depending on the back line. That's why I say that it's not all on Augie.
Yeah.
I would also be quick to point out that you have to take some of the good with the bad because, again, defensively, this team made a conscious decision 6 games into the year that they were going to change. They were going to give some of the ball up, that they were going to be less efficient, John, when they had the ball. So what ends up happening there? Well, overall, 8 shutouts. That's tied for the most in the league with Las Vegas Lights. They've got 15 goals against. That's third best behind only SAC and Louisville, and there's only 2 goals trailing. 7 goals against, John, in those first 6 matches. Only 8 in the other 12. We live in a league where not every team gets to have it both ways. It's that simple. And some teams are happy to get 1. Very rarely do you get a team that has the ability to attack and defend, and very rarely do you have a team that tactically is able to adjust more than just one way. So the Hounds are in a situation that we've seen many a time before where they're trying to do what they are best at. And with this group, it's deep lying defending and picking and choosing their moments in counterattacking situations.
Yeah, you mentioned Robbie Mertz too. I wanted to kind of piggyback on that a little bit there. You mentioned the fact that he's having a great year. He's doing really, he's sort of interchangeable. He can adapt to whoever's in front of him or who he's playing around in the midfield. But I've made the case this year, and really towards the end of last year, that he's been. I mean, again, I know it's hard to break through into that all USL conversation, but I just feel like his chances, he's creating chances. He's not really, again, and the stats sometimes are overrated, but sometimes they do tell the story. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because it seems like he does a lot of things, even though his stats are a little bit better this year in terms of goal scoring, and he has 1 assist, but it's just in terms of the little things he's doing, especially to keep being a chance creator on a team that wasn't creating a whole lot of chances for a good part of the first part of the season.
So you also remember that you lose arguably one of the greatest players in the history of the league in Kenardo Forbes, right? Yep. When you lose him, you lose consistency, you lose leadership, you also lose rhythm. Robbie and he work so well off each other. When it was Robbie, Danny, and Kenardo, that's the best midfield pairing in the league. I don't care how old Kenardo was. And I know we lost some stuff at the end for sure, but like you put those 3 together, take my money any day of the week. I mentioned how, like I went deeper into Augie Williams as opposed to Bertan. I think Bertan's starting to gain some rhythm right now, but I went deeper into Augie because he's the preferred 9 and he's going to get the most reps. He also makes the most money out of that group. So you have to give him a little bit more of a shot. That rhythm that I talked about for the 9s affects everybody underneath them. I think Robbie's forcing the game a little bit right now because of Danny trying to find his legs higher, because of some inconsistent play underneath him with Jackson Walty and Bradley Sample. I like those 2 as individuals. I don't personally like them as a pairing next to each other. Defensively, they give you more coverage, but then again, the more players that you reserve on the defensive side, the more difficult it makes it as you move forward. Robbie has always been a creator. You take him back to Shaka Daly at Michigan when he was an All-American in 2018. That was the first year I covered college soccer. I remember walking into Michigan's stadium and for training the day before and looking in and going, holy crap, who is this kid, right? A class award winner, super smart. And that IQ has always carried into the pro ranks. With him, I feel like because of the loss of Kenardo Forbes, and I say, you're taught in broadcasting, you're not supposed to say I feel or I think, because you're the analyst and you're supposed to speak in direct quotes, right? But in this one, I can't speak in direct because I'm not there at training every single day. And so I'm only privy a lot of times to what either Bob is willing to share with us, and he's very good about not always opening up on the personal side in relationship with players. I respect that. But also the 90 minutes of what we all get the same opportunity to view, unless I'm calling a game and can hear some other stuff behind the scenes. To me, Robbie feels like he's pushing the game a little bit because of the lack of stats up top. Sure, production from the 9 spot, because of, in a lot of situations, this is an opinion, this is factually based, players aren't willing to commit. That can be about energy. That can be about confidence because they spend so much dug down in mid to low blocks, 30 yards from their own net, that it's hard. It's hard to then turn and go 70 yards, especially, John, when statistically they're not winning any popularity contests on the attacking side of the football, right? So it's like, man, we just did what we're so good at. Now you want us to break away from that and then go try and attack and get out of our shell. There's going to be a fear that resides there because of those opening 6 matches where, yeah, they had the ball more, but they weren't creating enough. They weren't getting results. And I would argue even right now, even though defensively it's going quite well and you're starting to get more out of the team and you're unbeaten in 6, I still don't really think their quality of wins are that great. So you lose confidence in players, and that all comes back to a Robbie Mertz who the ball comes to him. He's got to be the guy right now because everybody looks at him as a player who can create. He doesn't have to be the goal scorer, but he can score goals. But when you tie it all together, he's the main leader, right? Like he's the guy. Canardo Forbes departs. Like everybody's looking at Robbie Mertz as the standard bearer within this organization. That's a lot of responsibility. I'm the first one to tell people X's and O's and break a game down and talk about analytics. But the personal side of this game can affect a player way more than what happens in video review. And I think the Riverhounds are a living example of that right now, and specifically Robbie Mertz.
Yeah, and I think that you made some really good points in trying to figure out, they need to figure some things out a little bit too. Like you made a good point about Bradley Sample and Jackson Walty and then Danny Griffin, like that grouping, that rotation. Some games, Bob seems to be moving pieces around still. I think he's still trying to figure out the right combination. I from my eye test, not looking too closely at the analytics, but just the eye test. And I've been fortunate to get back out to Highmark this year for more games. And that is when Danny's in the 6 to 8, I just see a little bit. I see that the whole team, everything seems to flow a little bit better. If there's another, depending on what that partnership that Robbie has with whoever he's partnership is with. I think Charles All has shown some promise, and Berton, where do you see his role? Do you see him as a potential, like what they did this past week, playing a full match, or coming off the bench and giving Augie being the burst of energy there, attacking, threat later in matches? I think Bob still has some things to figure out there.
Tinkering. Yeah, he's got a lot to figure out. I would agree with that. So start with your first comment about how he tinkers with the midfield, right? And he moves things around. I agree with you that he's searching. I would also say that from a tactical standpoint, hard to argue anybody better at recognizing what threat or threats the opponent possesses and how to then set his team up to nullify that. I would also remind people that a direct quote from Bob is, that's to a fault at times. Bob and I joke all the times, where like we'll go through defensive schemes, attacking schemes. I mean, I've gotten into calls and he goes, Devon, what lineup am I playing? He'll test me to see where my mind's really at. And, or he'll listen back to a broadcast and he'll go, man, you explained that lineup so well, or you were on the hint of it, but this is actually why I did that. And he admits that he overthinks things sometimes. It's the brilliance of a savant from a manager who he gets his team, number one, but he also gets the league and his opponent. So take all of that into account. Where I see, and I don't want to just limit it to Berton, but we're going to get there. Where I see this team is a midfield combination of 3 or 2. If it's 3, that conversation has to be Danny Griffin, and it has to be Robbie Mertz, a top 2 in a triangle. The single 6 underneath, Bradley Sample and Jackson Walty can fit the bill. Now, Bradley Sample can stretch the game a little bit more. He's got a bit more bite coming vertically. Jackson Walty, cleaner on the ball, defensively, covers a little bit more ground side to side of the central areas of the midfield. Griffin's the pivot. And obviously, the situation will dictate how this looks. But to me, that's how it looks. It also resides on the fact that you got to find a way to get Bertrand Jacques and Augie Williams on the field at the same point in time. That statement of you've got to find a way is something that I hate to say because it's a crutch for a lot of announcers. You've got to find a way. No. You're the expert. You're supposed to tell me. So I'm going to tell you right now. When I say you've got to find a way, number one, you build confidence. I don't know enough about Bertrand as to what he's like as a person. I've spent 10 or 15 occasions with him as an individual, but I know Augie a lot better. Bertrand is certainly more outgoing. I wouldn't say he's outlandish in behavior. So how do those two work off of each other as people? Sit them down, figure out how that works. I don't know them. So you have to figure out that part. Then basically almost like route running in football. Bertrand moves differently. Augie is a little bit more open-aired, free-flowing. Bertrand more linear. He's speed. He likes to crash. He likes to cut from outside in. Augie can cut down underneath in the pocket. You have to ingrain the repetition of those runs into each other. Mm-hmm. I mentioned that it's got to be a triangle in the middle or two. The only way that changes, and this is where the freedom from Robbie Mertz comes, is you give Robbie the ability to bump up onto the front line. He's going to have that luxury anyway under Bob. And again, you go back to personnel versus opponent. That could be a 3-back. He wants to go man on man. It could be a 4-back where he wants that front three to push the outside backs and utilize the sideline to their advantage and kind of create a defender in that way. And then you force them that way. That's about schemes. But I do believe that it is a combination of Danny Griffin, Robbie Mertz, Bertrand, Augie. I don't understand how it can't be. I don't think, personally, given the way the team defends so well, I don't feel it's fair to put that much responsibility on Augie. He's a confidence type player that you have to continue to feed him. You have to continue to stoke him. And to me, personally, the only way you do that is with a supporting role next to him. So that's where I see the attacking side struggling. And this is where I want to bring in, if you don't mind, you opened up earlier with some fans getting frustrated by the attack and getting frustrated with Bob kind of later in the year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The confidence thing is really interesting because if you can, and Bob has said to us as recently as 2 weeks ago that this homestand right now and all the games that are coming is where the Hounds have to make their mark. They've already done it, right? In that 6 games unbeaten, Rhode Island were in there, Miami were in there, took down New Mexico. I mean, those are big time wins, right? In terms of home wins. Mm-hmm. But if you turn the corner, Orange County, Charleston Battery, the good news is you get Charleston after Louisville, but it's still a Charleston Battery team. Charleston, Louisville, two best teams in the league. And you have to host Louisville. You have to give your team the confidence to hit postseason with the highest amount of respect for what they're capable within themselves. Your fan, Justin Ashcraft, and I love this stat, by the way. He tweeted at Mike Watson and he said, this is during the Miami game, Bob Lilly is 3-13 against USL Championship teams in knockout games in Pittsburgh. High mark is not nightmarish in early November. Mike Watts made that comment. And my response was this verbatim. I fully agree with you. He needs to be better come postseason play. It's not just Bob, it's the entire team.
Sure.
But there is something to be said for the fact that since Bob Lilly has arrived in 2018, the team has gone 13-3-6 in the month of October outside of the playoffs, home or away. And the team has only 1 loss in 10. They're 6-1-3 at home. I said it was an interesting case study. That's how I capped it. Because it's insane to think that you can have that kind of record and instill that kind of confidence and yet still falter come postseason. Yet to me, there's one determining factor outside of 2 seasons that reigned supreme. And I would say 2023 was an enigma because of Albert Piqua. Mm-hmm. They've only really been balanced attacking 1 year, and that was 2019. That's it. It was the year that they won the East, and they fell behind in one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen in Phoenix Rising in 2019, who took down the Players' Shield. That was the year that they were the most balanced attacking wise. That 2023 team, if not for Albert, they were nothing.
Yeah.
And credit to Albert and credit to the way they used him, but like they were nothing. That's why when I talk about balance and what I see out of the profile of players, what could be, that's the type of balance you're looking for if you're Bob. To once you get that confidence in, the ability to pair it with how good they are defensively.
Well, and not only that, but having a season where you had 2 double-digit scorers. Bob says he loves to have more than 1 double-digit scorer, and it really hasn't come much with this group. I think the Cicerone Dikwa was interesting in 2022. That was the only other year, and then of course 2019. So those are all interesting. And then one last to put a bow on the Riverhounds here is just, I think you nailed it in terms of this stretch of play, but the level of play and be able to have some confidence. The top 4 in the USL Championship Eastern Conference, the Hounds have not picked up any 3-pointers against North Carolina, against Loudoun, and of course Charleston and Louisville. So that'll be interesting to watch and see how that evolved. Like those 2 home matches with Louisville and Charleston are going to be critical, at least, even if anything, building confidence.
2 schools of thought, by the way, on that. I mentioned, and to your point, we're going to bring the resumes in here. I said earlier that I'm not overly impressed with the quality of win, right? Top 4, you nailed it. They are 4-6-4 against teams that are currently above the playoff line.
Yeah.
So that's 14 games, 14 matches. That's pretty insane. 14. That means 14 out of their 18 matches have been against teams that are currently above the playoff line. Now, obviously, that wax and wanes over the course of the year. But to me, when I look at the quality of opponent, only 8 of those out of 14 carry weight. And people are going to think, wait, how do only 8 carry weight? I'm going to tell you right now. The 8 that carry weight, Rhode Island, they are currently, as we are talking right now, Rhode Island are a playoff team. Not for me. Okay? It's not an impressive win. Sure, they're above the playoff line. It's not an impressive win. Let's keep going here as I scroll back through the results. Hartford, Birmingham, Miami, Rowdy, so everybody else. Great. Detroit, don't care. Loudoun draw at home. That's a good result. They should have gotten a win because as good as they are defensively, without an Abdulatif Abukor, you got to close that game out, and yet they let Loudoun in. But that's still a good draw. New Mexico, good win. Let's see where else. Detroit at home, don't care. At Rhode Island, don't care. Draw at Louisville, good draw.
And Bob cited that match. He cited that a few times. That's one of their better performances.
Loss at home to North Carolina. Loss at Loudoun. Loss at the Battery. Loss at San Antonio. Draw North Carolina. So when I say that those other the wins against your Rhode Islands and the Detroits, they don't matter. 1-4-3 against teams that carry weight. The good news is the only win that came in that 8 is against New Mexico, and it's recent, right? So I just think that this Riverhounds team, this is what it's going to come down to for everybody. Find a way to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's attacking and it's balance. Find a way to win, because no matter what, the Eastern Conference Final is going to be in Louisville or Charleston. It's that simple.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, I would bet, I'll go on record, and obviously I don't have the ability to do that because it's illegal for me to gamble, but like I would legit bet my whole salary that Louisville or Charleston are going to host the Eastern Conference Final. Sure. That is in the 10. Mike Watts and I talked about this. Agree with our opinion or not, we have had the ability over years to see everyone and consistently. And so when I look through the historics of this league in the same conference, I can't pick out a year where there were 2 teams that were that good in general, but more importantly, John, that were that much better than everybody else. Like it's not even close. Forget the points. It is not even close. Mm-hmm. The game that is Louisville and Charleston, to me, that decides the Players' Shield. Whoever wins that game, it's probably going to be chalk the rest of the way. They're even on points. They're even on games played. There are tiebreakers, yes, goal differential, blah, blah, blah. But like that should be it. So you have to find a way to survive, because it's going to be one of them. In my opinion, there are only 5 teams in general that can win the title right now, but that's a whole nother conversation. So,
sure. Well, and you get into playoff situations. A couple of years back, 2022, the Hounds, they know they went into Louisville. This was if they could go to penalties or something, something crazy, beat both of them, run the gauntlet. Let's just, I think it's just one step at a time here. I think the fans would love to see a home playoff match, would love to see a home playoff win and go from there and build confidence from there. It's all about building confidence, I think, moving forward. But Devon, in the interest of time, I would like to just transition out of this. And real quick, I have one quick question for you regarding college soccer. I know you'll be at the forefront of that. You and I will probably talk a little bit more into the fall. Obviously Pitt's getting ready to kick off. They're going to be I think 6th or 7th in the coaches poll. But there's been a lot of changes with college soccer. So ironic. Jay Vidovich, Pitt announced one more signing today. I just got one more player added to the roster. It's Jay at the wire. He always seems
the legend that he is, one of the greatest to ever do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And he did another one. So just maybe in less than a minute, what are your thoughts on what we might expect from Pitt this year?
Every single year, I'll say this, because of Jay and how good he is as a coach. He's very different than Bob, but they see the game differently, but they both see it very well. Jay is much more of a ball dominant coach who wants to make you feel uncomfortable with the ball at his feet, but also they play aggressive and they play high and they press you. I would expect once again for this to be a nationally ranked team that is competing for a national title. Lasse Dahl, really good on the front line. Love Jackson Gilman on the back line. Albert Thorson, the youngster, had a great breakout his freshman year, grew sophomore season. I expect more out of him. I'm trying to think of the kid on the front line, outside back. Sorry, Kasper Stenby, the Norwegian. I like him, the way that he overlaps and plays. Jesus Ferreira's younger brother, feel like he's due for a breakout year. He's kind of been slow within his growth within Jay, but one of those ball dominant players in the midfield that I would like to see him play a little bit more. Bryce, Josh, Jay, the entire supporting cast there's only one thing on their mind every single season, and it's win a national title. And Jay Vidovich, with the crop of players that he's had at Pitt and the quality they've produced consistently in the ACC, is well overdue for another one since his time at Wake Forest.
Well, it seems like he's knocking on the door every year. That's all you can do is get to the Elite Eight, get to the College Cup, and maybe they'll break through for a national championship. I mean, Pitt athletics has been knocking at the door of the volleyball program, the men's soccer, women's soccer has been really good. So, well, Devon, just really appreciate having you on. This has been fantastic, great insight, and I'm going to watch. We're very curious. I'll be out at Highmark Stadium tomorrow, and it should be a lot of fun. And good luck with. I know you're so busy. You're at different places today. You're in Kansas City. We'll always trying to keep up with where you are. I guess people just to follow you on your social media, and of course you and Mike, you have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, appreciate you, John. Obviously, every Tuesday, USL All Access, Sirius XM FC. All I ask for is if you follow me on social media, if you're going to yell loud so I can hear you. I like the noise.
Well, apparently, Justin Ashcraft got your attention, so.
Hey, listen. That's not, and to be clear, before we go, that's not a shot at Justin. I loved it.
No, it's great.
The education that exists within the Pittsburgh Riverhounds ranks, tops of the league. I love it. We need more passion. We need more emotion. Whether it's USL or this game in general, we need more people involved to help grow it. And most importantly, John, I appreciate your friendship, man, and giving me the platform, the opportunity to share my thoughts with you all. And can't wait to see the Hounds back in action again. And I look forward to getting a chance to be up on the hill with Pitt and visiting you during one of the college games with Vidovich this year.
Absolutely. All right. Great, Devon. Great talking to you. Good luck this weekend, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Cheers, brother.
All right.